Good evening. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Beirut, Lebanon on the evening of August 25th, 2024. I am pleased to be joined once again by my friend and fellow geopolitical analyst, who also is in Lebanon and in Beirut, albeit in a different physical location than I am this evening. Laith Marouf, thank you so much for joining me again, Laith.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, Laith is not only a very insightful geopolitical analyst, but also the executive director of Free Palestine TV, which has been doing some invaluable reporting on a regular basis, including from the war zone that is South Lebanon today. If you haven't checked out Free Palestine TV, I strongly urge you to do that. And if you're a fan already, to consider supporting the organization. It is an independent news organization, viewer-supported. Laith, why don't you take a second and just tell people how they can support Free Palestine TV and find your platform?
Yes, you can go to our website, freepalestine.video, where you can subscribe there for monthly donations and or one-time donations. We encourage people to do monthly donations so we can have a base to keep on building the productions and know a good base for this production. So now we're producing, for instance, a new show that just started called Prisoners of War. Palestinian POWs speak, and it's interviews with Palestinians in the West Bank that have been just released over the last few months. The first episode came out last week, and now we just finished filming the second episode. It's going to come out in the next few days. There's a lot of other content, of course, that we're doing here in Lebanon. But as you see, well, the more you can, people can donate, the more productions that we can do. And now we are producing inside occupied Palestine. That unit has to grow, and it will only grow, of course, with the help of our donors. Freepalestine.video is the website, and there's all the socials you can find there with links to our Twitter, Insta, Telegram, what have you.
And before we begin talking about our main subject today, which is the Islamic Resistance of Lebanon's retaliatory attack for the assassination of Fuad Shukr, I too have a little bit of a preliminary announcement. Today, for the first time in a video I posted on my YouTube channel, I announced that I also have a Rumble channel. I have been posting my videos there regularly, but have never actually done anything to promote the channel until today. And the reason why I've done that is because I'm becoming increasingly concerned by this extremely repressive behavior we're seeing from Western governments. For example, the arrest at Heathrow Airport of independent journalist Richard Medhurst by 6 British police officers under the Terrorism Act of 2000. So I have no reason to believe I'm going to be kicked off of YouTube at this moment, nothing that's specific to me, but given the general climate, I wanted people to know that if you're interested in my content, I suggest you subscribe also to my Rumble channel so that if I lose access to you through YouTube, you can find me there. So with
it's important that you brought this up because there was the arrest of the CEO Duval of Telegram, and Telegram has been one of the only places that you can get free access to resistance videos, and the French government is specifically targeting them now. We know now about what, and it's about the videos coming out from the resistance groups inside Palestine. And so the CEO of Rumble, and Rumble is a Canadian company, just now fled Europe, saying they have moved also to a safe zone, so no, they wouldn't have the same fate as the CEO of Telegram. And Rumble is banned in a lot of European states already. They're demanding again the removal of resistance videos. YouTube is I mean, I'm surprised that even Free Palestine TV still has a channel there. They've given us strikes. They just removed one of our videos. One of the youth from one of the Palestinian refugee camps here in Lebanon, we've been helping learn production, and has been producing us music videos from famous songs that don't have music videos, that are resistance, and putting videos from what's been happening since October 7th. And YouTube just removed Bob Andy's Unchained, the Free Palestine version of the music video, immediately within an hour, just because it had videos, parts of resistance actions inside Gaza.
I just want to correct one thing you said, Laith. You're entirely right to bring up the arrest in France of the founder of Telegram. His name is actually, you said Duval, I believe. Its name is Pavel Durov. And I actually mentioned that today when I came out and said for the first time on one of my YouTube episodes, Reason to Resist channel on YouTube, that I mentioned also the arrest of Durov and brought up the fact that upon his arrest, Samidun, the Palestinian human rights organization, put out, which itself is being persecuted relentlessly, put out a statement expressing solidarity with Durov and saying that that's exactly why they think he's been arrested, because he does allow, amongst other channels, pro-resistance and pro-Palestinian channels to operate freely on Telegram, and they think that this is an attempt to get him to shut those channels down. So just, contemplate this, everybody. I mean, this man is a multi-billionaire, according to media reports. If they can do this to him, he could certainly do it to any independent journalist who has far fewer means than he does. So with that, let's jump into it, Laith. I'd like, there is actually one other quick piece of preliminary business, and that is I keep getting asked by people who comment on my videos, where's Laith Marouf? So could you maybe take a second? I'm going to leave it to you to decide how much you want to share, but people have been missing you, and if you could let people know, why, and if you want to, obviously.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I just had a surgery. It's not a big thing. I'm not gonna discuss really like the details of it. And alhamdulillah, thank God, I'm good. I just needed 2 weeks, some rest. So I couldn't sit down for long times like this. But now it's better, and I hope to be on all the shows that I've been missing, including, speaking here with you, Dimitri. So thanks for all the good health wishes, and I'm back.
Thankfully, alhamdulillah and inshallah. I'm going to invoke both. So I'm going to start, Laith, by just giving a quick summary for those who haven't been watching closely what has happened today in southern Lebanon and in occupied Palestine. And when I'm done with my quick summary, just to set the table, please feel free to chime in with anything else, any big picture issues that I missed. And then I want to jump into a sort of careful analysis of what is going on, what happened and what is going on. So this morning, I returned last night with our mutual friend and colleague, Hadi Hoteit, a Lebanese journalist from South Lebanon. At the time that we left, there was nothing exceptional in terms of the levels of combat. Although on Wednesday, there was an unusually intense day on the part of the Islamic Resistance. I think they reported 15 military operations on that day. Which is, my sense is there's usually somewhere between 7 and 10. So that was a bit of a hot day, but there wasn't anything unusual happening by the standards of the last 5 or 6 months while we were down there for 4 days. And I wake up this morning and all hell has broken loose. The first thing I see is a report, which was actually shared with me by Hadi, that Israel's military had launched what it described as preemptive airstrikes on South Lebanon. And the number of strikes I saw quoted in the media was about 40. That is unusual. I don't think that there has been, you correct me if I'm wrong, Laith, but I don't think there's been a single day since the beginning of the genocide in Gaza last year where Israel launched 40 airstrikes against targets in South Lebanon. And they were, judging from the size of the explosions, they were using rather large munitions. So then, all of a sudden, I start seeing commentary coming from the Islamic Resistance that this is all bullocks. Yes, they were striking South Lebanon, and they were striking South Lebanon heavily, but they were not preemptive because, in fact, they started after the Islamic Resistance had begun to attack Israel in retaliation at dawn this morning for the assassination of top Hezbollah military commander Fuad Shukr on July 31st. And then the Islamic Resistance put out additional statements in which it said, in effect, that it had launched dozens of attack drones, 320 Katyusha rockets, and that its main target, it didn't identify the target by name, but it said that it was a military installation deep within occupied Palestine. So this would have been well beyond, according to what we were reading, this narrow zone of territory in the north of the country where there has been concentrated attacks on the part of Hezbollah every day. And the other thing they said was that they had attacked, in addition, in order to sort of create space, but also as part of their retaliation, a total of 11 Israeli military bases. I think one or two of which were actually in the occupied Golan Heights, which belongs to Syria, but the rest of which were in the northern part of the country. And then today, you and I agreed that we would have our conversation promptly after the speech, which had been announced earlier in the day, that the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, was going to deliver. He delivered that speech at 6 p.m. Beirut time. It concluded at about 7 p.m., and now it's about 7:45. So we haven't had an opportunity to discuss this. I know, I imagine you watched it in full, as did I. I had a live translation from a media organization going, so I was hearing it in English. What I heard Hassan Nasrallah say in that speech, and I'm summarizing, he did speak for an hour, was the retaliation from the Islamic Resistance for the assassination of Fuad Shukr is complete, and that subject to what Israel does next, of course, there is no intention to continue attacks that form part of the retaliation, although obviously he made quite clear as well that there are going to be ongoing efforts to bring an end to the genocide militarily on the part of the Islamic Resistance, as has been the case for the prior 10 months. And I didn't hear anything, and this is, I think, the most important thing from my perspective in terms of the bigger picture. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Laith, but I didn't hear him say anything about Iran and what any other resistance group is going to do, not just Iran, but the Yemenis, the Ansar Allah movement, the resistance groups in Iraq, Syria, and so forth. So with that, Laith, do you have anything to add to the big picture before I start asking you precise questions about what has transpired?
Yeah, I mean, he did mention the other Axis members in the beginning when he was mentioning the retaliations and everybody waiting for it. When he was discussing why, some people were asking, why is it taking so long, right? So he mentioned them and he explained the reasons why it took so long. Number one, to prepare for all contingencies of what could happen after a retaliation for those assassinations. And he explained also, that they needed to get all the weapons into position that they needed to use in whatever attack retaliation they're going to do. And also, of course, explained the reason how, although they did not trust the Americans to have a good outcome for any ceasefire negotiations, because the Americans are not trustworthy, that they still gave some time for the Americans to reveal themselves to the world in whether it's the negotiations with the Palestinians inside Gaza, and now the retaliation came. So that's in one way he did mention it, and his explanation, I think, is a good explanation for all the different fronts of this axis of resistance response. And I would say one correction is that he said that they consider this response done pending the number one revelations of what the Israelis say was hit and the response of the Israelis to that. And those are two important things because Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah revealed that the main target was the Glilon base just outside Tel Aviv, 110 kilometers away from the border with Lebanon. And it's the main Amman military intelligence headquarters that includes units that are very famous, like the 8,200 unit that is responsible for all the misinformation campaigns that we see on social media and what have you, and the main military Air Force base halfway between Tel Aviv and the border with Lebanon. And so him saying that this will depend on what the Israelis say, if the Israelis say nothing happened, nobody died, nothing got destroyed, of course, Hezbollah is going to then attack more. But if they are honest and they tell us who within the Israeli military intelligence cadres died, what big target was assassinated, what equipment was destroyed, and they show us stuff, then that will be sufficient for Hezbollah. But definitely, if the Israelis lie and say nothing was destroyed and nobody was assassinated, then Hezbollah will have to go for another campaign of attacks.
Yes, and I just want to say a couple of things about that. As you and I just briefly discussed before we began today, Netanyahu has come out and said a few things about this attack. One, that it's not the end of the story, and that the response, he said that Hezbollah and Iran should know that the response was a, quote, another step towards changing the situation in North and returning our residents safely to their homes, close quote. He also claimed that the air defenses of Israel had intercepted all the rockets and drones launched against the country. I myself have seen videos, which I think have been posted online by Israelis, of some of those rockets striking targets. And I've seen reports in Western media that at least one Israeli naval person, I don't know if he was an officer or a lower ranking member of the Israeli Navy, was killed in the strike on a boat, on a naval military vessel by one of these drones. So it seems reasonably clear, and it would strain credulity because, every single day, Hezbollah's missiles and drones have been striking targets successfully. Some of them are intercepted, but the idea that Israel, intercepted every single one of these 320 Katyusha rockets and dozens of drones is frankly preposterous.
Careful there, Dimitri. I mean, you're forgetting that these are the chosen people. The hand of God is under their command. Everything that comes out of the mouth of a chosen people person should never, ever be questioned. It's the word of the Lord, okay? Right. But truthfully, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, in his speech, said that they fired only 340 missiles and dozens of drones, as in the first phase, when everybody, and he said in his speech that people confused it once that the first phase is over, thinking that this is it. No, the first phase was just this wave of missiles counted as first 320, and then another 20 later on in the back and forth retaliations that were happening or distractions for the Israeli air defenses, in order for phase two that already also passed, which are these advanced drones unidentified in the speech of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah that hit the primary target of Glilon base outside Tel Aviv, the Amman military intelligence base, and the main air control base that was basically controlling the air defenses in the region of the north. So those reached their targets. It's a small number. What's crazy also is that the Israelis claim that they flew 100 jets up in the air to bombard South Lebanon and to fight off the drones, have dogfights in the air. And they claim that they did the 200 raids, destroying 1,000 targets in South Lebanon in 40 hits or whatever. So the numbers are crazy. They don't even make sense to what happened on the ground. And Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah.
Sorry, Laith, I understood them to say they struck 1,000 missile launchers, some
Exactly.
with these 100 jets. Is that what you understood them to be claiming?
Yes, but of course we're forgetting that the angels are flying with them because they are the chosen people, and more things are being hit by those amazing angels. But look, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah was clear that the Israelis, these 40 raids that they did in the south of Lebanon over the night, it did not hit any during the attack, did not hit one launch pad for the missiles, nor any hangars where the drones came out from in all their attacks. And only later on in the day did the Israelis actually hit 2 launch pads for Katyushas, which he said cost Hezbollah between 6,000 to 10,000, depending on how much how much they deck it up. He said that, like this launch pad, and that they just leave them because they're so cheap to put up, and because they value their members' lives. And so the Israelis failed during Hezbollah's attack from actually preventing the launching from happening. And they had, according to them, they had 100 jets in the air other than the drones, which is, so it shows you how much of a military failure it was, and of an intelligence failure it was, because they, again, the Israelis claimed that they destroyed ballistic and strategic missiles hideouts in these attacks. And Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah again said this did not happen, and that actually Sayyid Shukr, Martyr Shukr, Brigadier General Shukr, one of the things that he did at the beginning of this war and genocide in Gaza is that he moved all their ballistic and strategic missiles outside their locations in the south of Lebanon. That since the beginning of the war, none of those have been touched by Israeli attacks. So complete failure compounded by the Israelis in predicting the attack and hitting the locations where the attack was being launched from, in intercepting the important things. The Katyushas are like popcorn. You just throw them up in the air, and they distract the Israeli air defenses, and the drones and the advanced drones reach their target. We'll see what the Israelis say. I hope that they actually admit what was hit, so we can have a break here. But otherwise, if they don't admit that the punches landed, Hezbollah will have to land more punches.
And of course, whatever they say or Hezbollah does, we still have the question of Iran, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But I just want to, before we leave the subject of what the military outcome was today, mention that according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, this is I believe, a US-based pro-Western think tank that is closely tied to the Pentagon. They have something called the Missile Defense Project, where they themselves lay out what they believe to be in Hezbollah's arsenal. And the Katyusha is probably, I would say, according to their inventory of weapons in Hezbollah's arsenal, one of the least sophisticated of their missiles. They have, for example, the Khaybar 1 missile, the Zelzal, the Fateh, and the Scud, all of which have far more explosive power than the Katyushas, all of which have far greater range than the Katyushas. And certain of these missiles I've mentioned are guided, whereas as my understanding is the Katyushas are not guided. So none of these weapons, again, correct me if I'm wrong here, Laith, but none of these weapons, according to Hezbollah's various statements and Hassan Nasrallah's speech, were employed today. And if that's correct, it seems to me that while this attack, and again, this is my impression, this is by a significant margin the single largest military operation that Hezbollah has undertaken against the Israeli regime in the past 10 months. But it doesn't come anywhere close to deploying the more destructive, accurate, and longer range missiles in the arsenal. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, I mean, the Katyusha missiles, the Falak missiles, the way that Hezbollah uses them is like artillery, basically.
So having thought a bit about the weapons that they chose to deploy and the fact that they're declaring, subject to the conditions you and I mentioned, the retaliation to be complete, it seems to me that there's very careful escalation management happening here. As Nasrallah said, part of the punishment is making them wait and being unclear as to exactly what the resistance's intentions are. But there also seems to be a concerted effort on the part of at least Nasrallah's organization, the Islamic Resistance in Lebanon, not to give the Israelis and the Americans and the British an excuse to launch an all-out war on Lebanon. Is that your read as well? And I'm particularly interested to know what you think, Laith, about Israel's likely response, especially in light of the statements that Netanyahu has made today.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a saying in Iran that Iranians like to kill with a cotton ball. Iranians kill with a cotton ball. And that means that they take their time scrubbing all your skin and your flesh off. Okay. And so this is a kind of general attitude that people speak about Iranians like this. So now take it into the realm of military, and you can understand what strategic patience means. We are in an anti-colonial, anti-imperialist struggle. This is not like a fight over an alley or a city or something. This is actually a civilizational battle. And the West elite, including the Zionists, want to make it into a civilizational battle because they're losing it if it's just a battle about Gaza, right? If the battle is in Gaza, it's clear there is a very oppressed people in an extermination camp rebelling and fighting the whole West. And there is some support fronts from honorable peoples in the region. This is the main take from what's happening that all of humanity is watching and seeing. But now imagine it that it's Iran and all of the axis of resistance and everybody is fighting. Now it's not anymore about Palestine, right? It's now there's an excuse to use a nuclear weapon. The West, the Zionists are itching to do that because a war of attrition against the indigenous people of Palestine will lead to the collapse of the Zionist colony without an expansion of the death fields. And Netanyahu and the United States, if they want to hold on to the Zionist colony, they have no choice but to go there. You see, right now, the only reason we don't see the US going into a full war is on behalf of the Zionist colony. is because it's dealing with this fake election, and they have to wait for the new president to declare a war against the whole Arabic and Muslim peoples. Okay, uh, currently Netanyahu has only the approval from the masters in DC to genocide the Palestinian people in Gaza. And these quote unquote negotiations were about allowing them to genocide as many of them as possible, the civilians. There is no disagreement between the US and the Zionists about genociding the Palestinian people. The elite, they both agree on that. What they disagree on is opening a full-out regional war where it's American soldiers that are going to die in that situation as an election is being called. So the preference for the US may be fine with having American soldiers dead and coming back in coffins, but after the election, where a president that just got elected can call for this regional war.
I just had an interesting exchange through a friend with John Mearsheimer, the University of Chicago professor who is renowned for his realist geopolitical credentials. And I have, considerable respect for John Mearsheimer. I found his position, for example, with respect to the Ukraine war to be essentially spot on. And a lot of what he says about West Asia, he talks a lot about the influence of the Israel lobby. There's certainly merit in that. But he said, he has been saying publicly, and I challenged him on this in an email exchange, that the US is desperately trying to avoid a wider war in West Asia. I think, to employ a cliche, that actions speak louder than words. And its actions, the Biden administration's actions, leave no doubt in my mind, really, that they want a wider war, but they want it to happen in a way that enables them, in a time and in a manner that enables them to say, it is civilizational, Israel is a threat of destruction, we're dealing here with, the new incarnation of evil, of Hitler, and so forth. And they don't want it, obviously, to impede their electoral prospects. And so what's really going on is we're basically watching this kabuki theater where, Blinken flies off every few weeks to Israel, as he just did, claims to be pressuring the Israelis to do a deal so that'll calm the situation down, says over and over again, we don't want a wider war. But, every indication is when you look at their actions is that they do indeed want a wider war, albeit under circumstances which allow them to avoid the political fallout. And then I want to say one other thing, this idea that the Biden administration is desperately trying to avoid a wider war. Kamala Harris just put out a platform, and it is chock full of statements, accusations that Donald Trump was weak on Iran. Donald Trump was weak on Iran. She leaves no doubt the people who drafted her platform, whoever they are, and with her approval, have left no doubt that they intend to be much more, not a little bit, much more bellicose towards Iran than Trump was. Trump, for people who don't recall, his administration assassinated the top general, Qasem
Soleimani.
Yes, thank you for correcting me. That was, I believe, in 2019. The Trump administration withdrew the United States from the Obama-era nuclear deal, which actually was working in the sense that the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Association, certified that Iran was complying with the deal and wasn't developing nuclear weapons. He imposed crushing sanctions on Iran, probably worse than any that Obama had imposed before the deal was done. He continued to maintain an illegal troop presence in Syria and to attack resistance groups there and in Iraq, and even openly said, we're stealing the oil. We just came right out and said, we're stealing their oil. So if you regard Donald Trump as having been weak on Iran, how can you say at the same time credibly that you are trying to avoid a broader conflict with Iran in the region? I just find that absolutely astonishing that anybody would take this seriously, including, esteemed academics whom I respect, like John Mearsheimer. I mean, Laith, I know you and I have talked about this before, but how do you interpret the behavior of the United States government? Is there any suggestion in their behavior that they are, in fact, trying to avoid this wider war? And if not, where is this all heading?
No, they're not trying to avoid a wider war. Um, they're just trying to delay when it could happen. And I think, I do also admire Mercimer, but I do disagree with him once this idea that the Zionist lobby has the upper hand in what happens. I think they're definitely, the Zionists are a essential part of the elite in the West. They have very important assets that they control as a group that makes them have a lot more say, let's say, than other sectors of the elite in the West. But much of the rest of the elite are all actually anti-Jewish. I don't use the word anti-Semitic. They're white supremacists of Christian and or secular kind, the rest of the elite in the West. And if the Zionists, what they were offering as a decision on foreign policy of the United States or the West does conflict with the American interest or the imperial interest, it wouldn't happen. The United States knows that, and with it, the whole empire that it controls in the West, that it cannot let go of the colony in the land of Palestine, because this is without the existence of the Zionist colony. After World War I, there would have been unification of the Arabic people immediately. They wouldn't exist without the creation of a Jewish state. There wouldn't be a Wahhabi Muslim state in Arabia, occupying the holy sites on behalf of the West and producing us the Wahhabi cult. And so all of this will collapse. The control of the oil, people, the region will be unified. The Arabic people will return to be one of the most important, it's already the most important region in the world. But I mean, Arabic people will return to an international stage as equals. And this is never going to be allowed to happen by the American empire, by the West, okay, by white supremacy. Therefore, the Zionists get what they want because it is what the Americans need. The Americans have no choice. The Egyptian army will not be better in keeping the Arabic people in line on behalf of the West than Israel is. The Saudi pedophile kings and Emiratis wouldn't be able to control the Arabic world on behalf of the West. This is why the Zionist colony exists. And this is why the United States will fight for the Zionist colony more than it will fight for Ukraine, more than it will fight for Taiwan. Okay. And add to it the fact that the fake white man identity that was smashed together and conglomerated in the colonial furnace of North America is the core fake part of this identity is owning, usurping Judaism and Christianity and all the theological and cultural heritage of my people here in Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. They can't let go even of that for those reasons, beyond the Zionist.
Yeah. And let's recall that Biden himself proudly declares himself to be a Zionist. We have every reason to believe that he is. We should take him, at least in that instance, at his word. He don't need no lobby to push him around because he agrees with the lobby. He has precisely the same ideology and white supremacist commitments as the lobby does. I want to talk to you about Iran, Laith. My own view, I mentioned this in a piece I did this morning after the attacks, which is available on my YouTube channel, Reason to Resist. I don't think it's realistic to expect that Iran is not going to, in its own way, retaliate as well for the killing of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. Um, First of all, I think it definitely needs to establish some level of deterrence. If it doesn't respond, Israel will think it has carte blanche. But moreover, it has openly declared that it is going to retaliate severely. And it identified this, the killing of Haniyeh, as a matter of the honor of the Iranian people. I just find it unimaginable. I think the only circumstance under which Iran is not going to, in some manner, retaliate severely for the murder of Haniyeh in Tehran is if the Gaza genocide is brought to an end through a durable ceasefire on terms that the Palestinian resistance groups can accept. And in that regard, there's no indication whatsoever that the Israelis will offer them terms that they can accept. For example, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza death camp and a permanent ceasefire. So do you agree with my assessment that Iran will, in some identifiable, meaningful manner, retaliate, that it will be more damaging to Israel, significantly more damaging to Israel than the first wave of drone and missile attacks upon the country? And if you agree that, you know, the retaliation is coming, what do you think it's going to look like, and why do you think Iran chose not to retaliate at the same time as Hezbollah did today?
Yeah, we go back to that idea that you're going to kill somebody with a cotton ball. So we saw for almost a month all of the Western intelligence and military might being directed to come to the region. We saw the Zionists, all their assets up in the air for almost a month. You know, every little village in South Lebanon had 3 drones 24 hours a day on top of it. So it clearly was a good strategy to deplete, even without starting the war of attrition. You're already depleting your enemy and his abilities and his resources. And you know, like looking at what Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah said as a reason for the specific targets that they hit today. He said that these were, you know, the headquarters of where the decision making was made, where the intelligence was gathered, and where the attacks came from against Sayyid Hassan Shukr, martyred here in Beirut. So if we think about those two things, then we can probably predict that the Iranians will also hit targets that were associated with the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. And if already, you know, Hezbollah has hit the headquarters of the Amman, the military intelligence of the Zionists, then Iran will be expected to hit something even bigger than that. And again, we will see how Netanyahu and Israel respond to Hezbollah's attack. We may be like in a bigger war before even you know, Iran retaliates.
Yeah, my own guess, Laith. I really hope I'm wrong about this, but I think sometime in the next several days, the genocidal regime is going to bomb Beirut. I'm not suggesting it's going to be a carpet bombing of the city. I don't think they're going to go that far, but I think they're probably going to attack Dahya, the southern suburb, possibly with more than one airstrike, because frankly, these mass murderers just can't help themselves, and they do want the wider war. Again, I hope very much that I'm wrong. What are your thoughts about this? Do you think they're going to be able to exercise any kind of meaningful restraint? And let's bear in mind that they just told us that none of the rockets and drones got through. So it's like, what are you retaliating against? But they will, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it is a vicious, rabid dog. That's what Zionists are. I can't predict honestly what they will do. Uh, I think if they uh, hit civilians in Dahi, that would be like committing suicide. The, uh, it will be suicide if they attack Dahi, and it will open the doors of hell. Said Hassan Nasrallah in his speech today again referred to the fact that they did not target any non-military targets in the Zionist colony since the beginning of this war, and including tonight, this dawn when with the Arba'in operation, that's what they called it. So if the Zionists attack civilian targets, this time Hezbollah will retaliate in kind, and then it's all hell break loose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And once again, I know you have to go, Laith, and I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me again this evening. I wish you a swift completion of your recovery. You're looking fine, and I'm glad to see you're back in the saddle. Again, check out Free Palestine TV if you haven't already done so. And I omitted to mention when I talked about my Rumble channel, my Rumble handle is @Dimitri Lascaris. So for the time being, this is Laith Marouf and Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Beirut, Lebanon on August 25th, 2024.